Hello, welcome everyone here and those who are watching at home. We are Lies, Diego and Maud, and out of a group of 8 people, we are the 3 chosen ones to present to you today our policy project, Reconsidering Club Spaces. So the realization of this project was created in close collaboration with Nachtplan. Nachtplan is a collective started by and for young, creative, Leuven-based people. And their mission is the development of a more qualitative and diverse nightlife. So with our policy project, we participated in their search for Leuven's future new nightclub. And in this quest, Nachtplan works with 2 main partnerships, being Miss Miyagi and Horst.
Our process started in the end of October of last year with the first series of brainstorms in which we found a first idea for our project. Our first concept was a 3-day event that we would have organized in collaboration with Nachtplan, and this podcast would have served as promotion for that event. But due to the COVID pandemic, we shifted the focus of our project to the podcast that we are presenting to you today. Our recordings took place in the last week of February. Then throughout the month of March, we dedicated ourselves to remixing the audio files, adding music, and also establishing our social media channels, as well as making first posts announcing our guests and some of the content that we were going to be discussing. Our first episode was launched at March 31st of this year, and the other 2 followed weekly on the first 2 weeks of April. As Maud said earlier, one of Nachtplan's main missions is providing the city of Leuven with a qualitative and diverse nightlife. These are 2 values that we also hold in very high regard. So from the beginning of our project, we really try to involve as many voices and backgrounds as possible in our research, hoping that Nachtplan will include these in their search for the future nightclub.
For the episode on the club community, we've invited Celine Govaerts from Loco, Benjamin Khalilzadeh from Stuk, and also Seppe de Keuster from Creative Dub. This episode focuses on the different communities and individuals and how each of them can be involved in the story of the new club. The guests see the development of the club's own identity and vision as an important part of this, and they find moments of reflection important to keep the dialogue open between the organizers, partygoers, and the environment. And they also find it important to have a bottom-up organization, and they told us about the urgent needs for more space in Leuven to organize events.
Our second episode was about architecture and infrastructure of a nightclub. And for this we invited 3 guests who are no strangers to both architecture or Leuven's nightlife. The first one is Stan, who studies architecture and is a member of Onkruid and Nacht. Then we had Ken, who is an intern at Robrecht and Daam. And then we had Laura, who's a member of Fabrik Leuven. So during our conversation, we guided the guests through it based on 5 themes related to the design of a club space. First, we discussed the architectural features and the accessibility of a nightclub. Then the importance of versatility of the room and the blind spots. And finally, we talked about what to pay attention to with the reuse of a building.
For our third and final episode focusing on diversity and inclusivity in nightclub, we invited Brahim Tol and Yira Hens to join our conversation. Brahim is a photographer and DJ who used to organize events in Leuven up until 2018, and Yira is a theater coach who is also the creative mother of the organization Be Human, focusing on the specific needs of LGBTQ people of color. For our episode with him, we asked our guests basically for advice on how to properly address the complicated question of making a nightclub diverse and inclusive, and also the concept of safe spaces. The most important impression they gave us during this episode was that they warned us about the dangers of top-down approaches to this complicated question, especially when the organization in question has a board made mostly of white cisgender males. So this turned out in a very critical episode, in which they invited us to actually include bottom-up approaches instead, to actually guarantee that the club is diverse and inclusive.
For the communication of our podcast, we've made our own Facebook and Instagram page, and that was to promote the release of our podcast. So over here you can see our Instagram page and our SoundCloud, and yeah, that's also a picture of our Instagram page. You've already been able to watch these impressions during the presentation, and the recordings themselves we have posted on SoundCloud with the first release on the 1st of April. And for the episodes in total, we now have 210 listeners. And then finally, the communication from Nachtplan. They've also communicated about our project on their socials. So they've made a post on their website, like you can see over there, and also a post on Facebook and on Instagram. And yeah, that was it. Thank you for your attention and have a nice weekend.
So we chose for the podcast format mostly because it was a formula that we could have adapted easily to the pandemic. In case the lockdown restrictions would have gotten harder, we could have easily recorded the audio files through a Zoom call. So it allowed us for more flexibility, especially after the idea of a physical event was no longer in place. And another motivation was, I think we can agree on that. Actually, opening a dialogue with people from Leuven and also from outside of Leuven, we thought an outsider's perspective was really would really add something to the discussion. So that was,
Yes.
Yeah.
The other question was, I think everyone in the group, well, we're a group of 8, but only 3 of us are here today because of the safety rules. Everyone had different motivations for joining this group. Some of us did it because we had never worked in event planning. Others did it because they had a background in music and DJing. So it was a complex mixture of reasons, actually. But I think it all worked out in the end, and everyone contributed to the group through their background.
Yes. This QR code will you redirect to our SoundCloud page. So if you want to listen our podcast, the 3 episodes, you can listen via this code, and check also out our Instagram and our Facebook page. Thank you.